Let's start another week here on Locked On Blue Devils, and I have great news for you. We are now 10 days away from the Duke football season officially starting. This is amazing. Mailbag Monday getting set to start right now today on Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's great to have you here with us today on Monday, August 18th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. We are proudly a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen here throughout the day, each and every week. We appreciate your support as always. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Today's show, it's a Mailbag Monday. We're going to be talking about this Duke football team with our good friend Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Also, I'd ask that you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are less than 20 subscribers away from 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I can't wait to celebrate that milestone with all of you guys here today. So go subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils. And now, without further ado, the aforementioned Josh Cox is back with me here once again. We spoke at the end of last week, all things basketball. We pivot now, and man, we can use our hands now. We can start to count down the number of days until the Duke football season starts at 10.
Yeah, it's happening, man. It's coming next Thursday night, Wallace Wade Stadium, Elon, which obviously Duke hopes to be a tune-up game, get right, get ready game for the rest of the season. And it's been a long time since Jacksonville, Florida, and the beatdown that took place there at the hands of old Jackson Dart and the Ole Miss Rebels. And so been a long time coming, and I know Duke fans are ready to see this year's team on the football field for sure.
Without a doubt, I'm certainly ready to see what the Duke team's made of and how they fare for these big tests that they've got, including that second game of the season against Illinois, a top 25 Fighting Illini team. I was on Locked On College Football a little bit earlier today. You can go and find that wherever it is that you get your podcast, previewing that game in great length for Duke and what it's going to take to set the tone for the rest of the season. But Josh, let's dive into this mailbag. We take questions always from folks on Twitter at @LO_Blue Devils, or you can send it to us via email, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com, and also in the comment section down below within our community feed here of the YouTube channel at Locked On Blue Devils. You ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it, man.
All right, here we go. So first question comes in. Someone asks, will Duke's offensive line be good? I like Darian Mensah, but don't want him to be running for his life. So what do you guys think? I'm feeling pretty good about the offensive line, Josh, going into this upcoming season. And I certainly agree. I really like Duke's quarterback, but also don't want him to have to be running for his life. So the offensive line is going to be paramount to Duke's success a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the one thing that you have this season that you did not have last season is continuity. You've got 4 of the 5 returning starters from last year, Matt Craycraft, Justin Pickett, Bruno Fina, Brian Parker. A couple of those guys will be playing in the league in the next year or two. So that bodes well. Jordan Larson transfer, they got really late in the transfer window, looks to be the 5th starter there. So there's going to be experience on the line, which is always good. And then behind those guys, there's a lot of inexperience but talent. And Duke did really focused this incoming recruiting class on a lot of offensive linemen. And so, there's a lot of freshmen that are now on the roster that play on the line. And, we've seen in the last 2 to 3 seasons, we've seen injuries and whatnot arise on the line, and you've seen young guys have to step up. And then now those young guys are now seniors, right? And so, it happens at some point in time in their careers. And so cautiously optimistic about the offensive line. I think the bigger question mark about the line is, can they run block? Last year, they really did a good job, whether it was all they're doing or whether it was Malik Murphy throwing the ball immediately when he got the snap. there was not, they kept the quarterback off his butt last year. This year, it's going to be about, can they open up the holes to the running game? And then can they hold the defensive line off enough for Darian to be able to extend plays? So it's going to be a little bit different this year for sure.
Do exactly what you did last year, like you said, in terms of having an effective passing attack with those offensive linemen. But then also, hey, man, let's knock some people over. Let's open up some big holes and gaps for these running backs to make Duke dynamic. Second to last, in the ACC in running the football last year. Only Florida State, who had 2 total wins on the entire season, had a worse rushing attack than Duke. So really, really need to see that improve going into the year. So I like that. That's a good place for us to start. Here's our next one, Josh, as we look at these questions on a Mailbag Monday. Compare Duke's schedule to the rest of the ACC. Is it more or less favorable? I think we're going to be in agreement here that this is one of the more favorable schedules for Duke. I'll let you touch on that a little bit. When you look at last season's winning percentage and that sort of thing, in the ACC itself, Syracuse, Clemson, Florida State, that's who you don't want to be in terms of the schedule that they've got in front of them. Duke is one of the more favorable ones.
Yeah, no question. I mean, while Duke does go on the road and play Clemson, they go on the road and play Syracuse, two, double-digit win teams from last season. They also miss Miami. They miss Louisville. They miss SMU. And so, your three most challenging ACC games, they're going to be Georgia Tech, Clemson, and probably Syracuse. I'm sure there's some UNC or NC State fans that are wishing they made that list. Now, while it is a favorable schedule, JJ, it's not a cake schedule like they have down the road in Chapel Hill. Arguably the easiest schedule in the league. Debates there, but a very easy schedule there. But I would say this is favorable in the sense that Duke is staying away even from like a potential rebound Florida State season, right? Like they're staying away from some of those heavier hitters, and good for Duke, because there's been years where, they've not been so fortunate, and that schedule's come back to bite them. But so I like the schedule thus far. And then I actually think there's been an upgrade, in the out of conference schedule. Obviously Illinois is a major opponent there, but then you have Tulane as well. And keep in mind, when these games are scheduled, this is not this off season that they're scheduled. They're scheduled years in advance. And so, this Tulane game really could have been pretty wild had they not had all the exodus they had after last season. I mean, this could have been a top 20, 25 team coming in. Duke could have had 2 of their 4 non-conference games be against ranked opponents. So kudos to them for scheduling.
Which is why you see Clemson and Florida State annually towards the top of toughest schedules, because you look in their non-conference, Clemson can't run away from South Carolina. Florida State's not running away from Florida, right? Like there are just some games that are built in there out of conference every single season in terms of rivalry. And then how about somebody like Syracuse? Listen to this, Josh. Syracuse has road games at Clemson, at Miami, at Georgia Tech, open up the season with a neutral site, Aflac kickoff game in Atlanta against Tennessee, a playoff team from a season ago. Then they've got another playoff team in Notre Dame on their schedule too. At least we're not Syracuse.
Well, fortunate for Syracuse, they took advantage of last season being basically the polar opposite and got all their wins. And so this season is back to reality. This is the classic though. They could be a better football team or as good of a football team as they were last year with 10 wins and have like 6 or 7 wins just because of the way the schedule's dropped. And so that's the weird thing about football. It really does matter. And like we said, it's fortunate for Duke because Duke is kind of in that bottom 4 to 5 of as far as strength of schedule in the ACC.
Yep. So for a team like Syracuse, they open up the season against Tennessee, a big power out of the SEC. Duke opens up the season against Elon. We'll talk a little bit about preferences. We've got a question there about season openers that we'll dive into after this first break here on the show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Drip Drop. This is one of our newer sponsors with the Locked On Podcast Network, and we love them. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed, scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Drip Drop is incredible. It's one of my absolute favorites. I've enjoyed the watermelon flavor. They were able to send us over a bunch of packages to try out with the various flavors. Watermelon is certainly my go-to after a long workout or on those extra busy days. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Drip Drop is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, the aforementioned Josh Cox is here with us. It's Mailbag Monday on the program. Again, send us an email, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com, or in the community comments section of our YouTube page. You could send thoughts in via X as well at @LO_Blue Devils. Question here: do you like easy games like Elon to open the year, or do you prefer more challenging games? A pretty simple question. I just mentioned another example within the conference: Syracuse opening up with a school like Tennessee to open up the year. North Carolina's got a Big 12 opponent in TCU to get the season started. We see some of those, Clemson taking on LSU really early in the year. Duke, however, this season, they've got an in-state opponent in Elon coming to the house.
Yeah, I actually, I think if you made me choose, I kind of like an opponent that you're going to be favored to beat handily, generally speaking, because you are able to work some kinks out maybe from fall camp and maybe some elements of the offense or defense that you were unsure of, maybe some players, some 2-deep questions that you have. You're able to get more reps with your 2-deep and your 3-deep. So, I'd say generally, but I will give this caveat. I think it depends year to year. So 2 years ago, Duke had a good returning, team, right? They had a lot of guys back that hardly anyone hit the portal. They were, a lot of seniors on that squad. And the moment that we figured out that Duke was playing Clemson in the opening game,
right?
At least the guys on our podcast were all in on the upset. We were all in on Duke upsetting Clemson because we were like, this is an experienced Duke team. They don't have to get to know each other. They're going to be ready week 1. This was the Cade Klubnik had just played in the bowl game, I believe. DJU had gotten benched or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that. And so there was a little bit of up in the air there. He had transferred out. This was Klubnik's, team. So anyway, now, in my opinion, this season, Duke could have gotten away with playing Illinois week 1, Elon week 2, as opposed to the reverse of that. Because once again, outside of Darian Mensah and 2 of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers, you're really returning the majority of your important areas of your team, your lines, offensive and defensive lines, your linebacker room, your All-American cornerback, the other starting cornerback in Kamari Robinson was basically a starter last year with Josh Pickett. So anyway, this year, I think Duke could have actually afforded to play a more a more difficult opponent than Elon. But I don't think anybody on that Duke in that Duke program is upset that you're going to be able to see some reps from some guys, some freshmen maybe even in this game, and they're going to really see what they've got.
Worth noting, Elon was also the season opener for Duke last year. Very first game of the year, very first game with Manny Diaz as head coach, and Duke won 26-3. It's really rare. I've been trying to go back through the various schedules over the last decade plus or so to see the same first opponent of the year in consecutive seasons. So a bit of an outlier here, but there have been years, Josh, like you mentioned the Clemson game, where Duke comes out, gets the big win over the Tigers to set the tone for what they want to do that season. But you've also got, a team like Charlotte in 2021 that you felt like should have won that game against an in-state opponent that's playing down in the Group of 5 level. And we all know how that game ended up with Charlotte absolutely beating Duke.
I was in the house for that game.
Yeah.
That was down in Charlotte. It was not fun.
No, ran a couple of big, long, explosive plays for Duke that made you feel like, okay, this is going to be good. But unfortunately, Charlotte made more plays then. And then also, go back even further, 2019, Duke gets the opportunity to play in that Chick-fil-A kickoff game. That's now the Aflac kickoff game. Duke played against Alabama and lost 42-3. So not always the easiest thing in the whole wide world to put yourself in those positions.
Yeah, you can make the argument either way. And like I said, I think the safe bet is if you get the chance, play a team that you ought to be able to beat. And obviously, listen, college football's shown us like you can never take a win for granted. But on paper, play a team you can beat and really get to fine-tune some things and then get ready for that week 2, which for Duke this season is obviously hosting Illinois.
Okay, Josh, let's keep it going. Next question. How many Blue Devils made the All-ACC preseason teams, and how many do you think can make All-ACC when the season is complete? So I guess first part is fact. Second part of this question would be opinion. Fact is that Duke had Terry Moore and Chandler Rivers selected to preseason All-ACC teams. Now the question is, who all can make All-ACC? I appreciate the nod for Terry Moore there, but in so many ways, Josh, we probably got to just, mark that one out because of all the time he's expected to miss coming back from the injury. So then if you're just going based off what's been expected, it's just one at that point. And can someone else emerge to receive All-ACC accolades?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think so a couple of the low-hanging fruit there would be if you look at specialists. I think you could look at Cade Reynoldsson and Todd Polino, and maybe even on the return game, you got Queso, maybe potentially Samir, depending on what kind of seasons they have, right? Because the truth is, you return a couple of kickoffs for touchdowns, you make the All-ACC team.
All right.
You return 2 or 3 punts, it gets you on there. So, that will be interesting. But then I think, you have to start at the head of this, and that's at the quarterback position. There are obviously some good quarterbacks in this league. There are every year. There's some high-profile quarterbacks. But I will say this, I think Duke fans have to get used to this. Darian Mensah is a high-profile quarterback now. And so he's high-profile. Carson Beck is a high-profile quarterback. Haynes King is a high-profile quarterback. We've already mentioned Cade Klubnik earlier in the previous segment. And so I think you got to look there. And then, there's going to be some defensive potential wild cards here. This is another Trey Freeman season. And I know Trey's tackle numbers were not incredible last season, but you've got Nick Morris back there. Anytime you get like a tackle machine, like Nick Morris, I think could be, you get over 100 tackles in the regular season. I mean, you got to get some looks there. And then I think probably the best chance is going to be on your defensive ends for Duke. And that's going to be Wesley Williams, VJ Anthony on that defensive line. Maybe even Aaron Hall in the interior. On the other side of that line, we already mentioned, your Brian Parker's. I mean, Brian Parker's going to be an NFL draft pick in the first or second, third round.
I think he's got a really good chance of making it happen.
Yeah. I hate it when people ask specific questions and I don't give specific answers. If you had to back me into a corner and say how many guys will make it, I'm assuming we're talking about first, second, third team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Duke could have 4 players when it's all said and done.
That's good. That's
4
good.
players.
I'm
not gonna hang my hat on which 4 those are other than Chandler Rivers.
Yeah. I'll go with 2 and be pleasantly surprised when you're correct and there are more of them. So I'll set it up that way. All right. Okay. Good stuff. Talking all things Duke football. I want to dive a little bit more into this team recruiting specifically, and then also some big conversations ahead of this upcoming football season. We'll continue that portion of our conversation here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize, you know what? I want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merchandise, or even invite a bigger group of people to come with you to get those tickets. Game Time makes all of this possible. They make buying tickets fast and simple, prices on the app actually drop the closer that you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. I've been looking at baseball tickets all summer long, making trips up to Atlanta to cheer on those Atlanta Braves, even wearing Braves shirt today here on the podcast. And I'm always checking out the seat views on Game Time when I'm doing that. They've got the Mets coming into town this upcoming weekend, and boy, oh boy, I'm eyeing some of those good tickets there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, here we go. Josh Cox with me. We're winding down on a Mailbag Monday, 10 days away from the first Duke football game of the season. Quick math, Josh. I think that's 240 hours if we're doing it. Yeah, look at that right there. We're getting close to this game being played. So with that in mind, a question comes in talking about actually what we discussed on Locked On College Football earlier today. That when I joined Spencer McLaughlin there on the show, Vegas prominently has Duke at a win total of over under 6.5. Doesn't that feel low to you? Someone sent us a message there on X at LO_Blue Devils. Absolutely. I do not understand how you settled on that number. We've already kind of looked at the schedule that Duke's got going on here. They've won 26 games over the last 3 seasons, which is third most in the ACC, only behind Clemson and Louisville. They've got a playmaker at quarterback that they went out and got the transfer portal, the experience on the offensive line. I think playmakers are going to step up on the outside. Oh, yeah, Manny Diaz knows a thing or two about defense. Like, I don't know how it settled at 6.5, man.
Well, I mean, if you're a gambling man, smash the over.
That's the action. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Our podcast released our season preview, our predictions for stats and records and things. And we came to the 9-3 mark for the regular season. And I was, call me crazy, I was 9-3, lean 10-2. That was my.
Okay, yeah.
Now, that would be optimal.
Right. And very clearly over 6.5.
Very true. And I believe that the base, I'm talking about the season goes bad.
Yeah.
7-5.
Yeah.
Like 7-5 will be disappointment. There'll be angry Duke fans. There'll be, There'll be people calling for coordinators to get fired. Like if Duke goes 7-5. So that to me, that's the disappointment is at 7-5, which is still hitting the over. So once again, I can't, this is not official gambling advice.
Right.
I'm just saying, I believe that there's potential for profit.
Yeah. The question is, doesn't that feel low to you? 6.5.
It feels absolutely
low. Feels low with what we're looking at here. All right. Finally, last question that we'll touch on today with this Mailbag Monday. Where do we need to finish recruiting wise to give you more hope for the future? I like that. We're always this time of year after the summer portion ends, getting more and more commitments right now from high school players in the class of 2026 who want to get it done before their football season starts. And Josh, so many of them now become mid-year enrollees and graduate high school early so they could be there in January for spring ball. There's a bunch of momentum that wants to come forward here for Duke. So in the class of 2026, the On3 composite rankings right now, looking at all the various outlets, Duke right now, the 50th class in the country, which is really impressive that Manny Diaz has got there with 18 commits. Duke, however, is 13th out of the entire ACC in terms of commits. The problem right now, Duke's got 18 commits. 17 of them are 3-star level players. The only 4-star currently that Duke has is an offensive lineman out of Prosper, Texas, and Sean Stover. So all that said, these first couple of games, Duke's got big home games. I know it's going to be a major recruiting weekend for Duke for the Illinois game, for example, getting folks in to kind of see the environment there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, caveat here, the star system can be very misleading. If you look at high level NFL players, it's really a crapshoot
Yeah.
on who was 5-star and who wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's number one. But because it's fun to talk about, and it's interesting. Duke in 2025. So this true freshman class was ranked really high, I believe, in the low 30s to mid 30s. The best recruiting class in Duke football history, the highest rated recruit in Duke football history, in Bryce Davis. Bradley Gomper's right behind him. There was a lot in this 2025 class.
Officially.
34th. Okay. So with that being said, I believe, and I believe, meaning like I've been told, this coming 2026 class is not going to have nearly the numbers that class had. They're going to be more selective, not as many, offensive linemen. I'm assuming skill positions are going to always be at a premium. And so I don't know how much more you're going to see from this 2026 class. I will say this, that Coach Diaz is confident that he knows the holes that need to be plugged. And you have to look at recruiting in 2 and 3 years down the road, right? It's not who are these guys right now. It's who are these guys when they become a junior in their 3rd season, right?
Yeah.
Redshirt sophomore, whatever it may be. That's when you really begin to see them. I mean, Wesley Williams is like the perfect prime example. Basically nothing to a little bit to a lot. And this year, a whole
Make
lot.
it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say this, Duke fans, don't expect a barrage of additional 2026 recruiting. Expect Duke to stay active in the portal. This program and this coaching staff has shown that they are focused in the portal. They know what they're looking for in the portal. They don't necessarily always go after, the big name SEC, former 5-star that got beat out by somebody else and left. They don't go after that player. They really go after players that have something to prove, that want to take a step up, and they have typically done that. I mean, last season does not happen. Obviously Malik Murphy made the headlines as the quarterback, but I mean, you take Alex Howard and Ozzie Nicholas led the team in tackles, both of them transfers. So very, very important last season. Offensive line transfers, Bruno Fina, you know what I mean? Keep going down the list of transfers into this program last season. And so, I believe that Duke fans, while high school recruiting is still important and Duke wants to build from high school, they supplement from the portal. And so high school recruiting is, I think you have to say this, over the last 5 years, high school recruiting has become not quite as important because you have the unlimited transfer rule now, and you can literally rebuild your roster in one offseason.
But still, having said that, the traditional powers are always still towards the top. Of the football rankings, and that's kind of been the case for Duke, like on the basketball side of things, right? Like, hey, let's transfer portal. You can get the best players right away that are ready to play, don't have to take a level of adjustment to the college game. And yet every single year you put the recruiting class rankings together and it's Duke, it's Kentucky, it's Kansas, it's all of the traditional schools in basketball recruiting back there towards the top or whatever. Just perspective again, Duke 50th right now in the 2026 class, top 10, the USC Trojans, Georgia 2, Oregon 3, Notre Dame 4, Texas 5, Texas A&M 6, Alabama 7, LSU 8, Ohio State 9, and Miami 10. I feel like that's just, all a reversed order from previous years at all.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you want to look at it more localized, if Duke fans are following along, I mean, every single year UNC out recruits NC State and Duke.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I mean, we all watch those games. When it boils down to it, there's not a difference on that football field when Duke plays UNC, when NC State plays UNC. NC State beats UNC as much or more than UNC beats them. Same way with Duke and UNC here recently. It's been back and forth. So it's all about when these guys get there. Do they develop? Do they become men? How quickly do they become men? Are they not high school kids and they turn into grown men? And I mean, we would be remiss for Duke to not lean into the David Feely effect on turning these
doubt.
boys into men, right?
No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. It pays off, and big things happen there. Josh, it's been fun, man, going through another Mailbag Monday with you here, talking all things Duke football. Tell me about your work and how people can best support you.
Yeah, for sure. The Section 17 podcast, man. We are obviously love Duke football and cover Duke football. And we just did a really cool giveaway that we're running right now, where we had the college football 26 game. We got the Duke graphic for that, got that signed by all the guys that are on that graphic. So we're doing a giveaway right now to give that away. It's a one of one. Like, it literally does not exist anywhere else. And so it's got Darian Mensah, it's got Coach Diaz, it's got Chandler Rivers, it's got Brian Parker, all of them signed it. So really cool. I think it'll be a really good collector's item. But we got stuff like that. And then our YouTube channel, just look us up, Section 17 Podcast. We would love to have as many followers as you guys are. You guys are creeping closer and closer to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, man. Shout out. We'll celebrate that when that happens.
I love it. See you soon, Josh. Thanks for being here.
Have a go, man.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. That's going to bring us to a close here today. Again, 10 days away from the start of the Duke football season. Super excited, and make sure you follow along for all the coverage that we've got coming your way. Still plenty of more basketball conversations per usual, because Duke basketball never stops, and John Shire's always doing that thing. Thanks to Josh Cox. Subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcast. For your second listen today, make sure you go check out The Portal Show or Locked On College Basketball, and so much more. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review wherever it is that you get your podcast. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you, and good day.